It's fantasy football draft season, and today we're looking at wide receivers. We're going to look at the advanced analytics. We're going to look at whether or not you need them in your leagues, where should you draft them, how to strategize around them in your drafts, and everything else. Before we dig in, you need to click that subscribe button right now. We're going to strategize for your drafts. We're looking at Hero RB, Zero RB. We're doing rankings. We did a wide receiver ranking video the other day. We're going to help you set your lineups and everything else. Click that button. Stop missing out. We're going to be here all year long. But our first wide receiver today is Puka Ngata. And we're starting from the top and going all the way down to the bottom here. Ranked as the 4th best wide receiver per ADP. Drafted as the 4th best wide receiver. On Underdog Fantasy right now is Puka Ngata. Ranked 7th overall. Drafted 7th overall. Target share of 30 last year. Almost 10 targets per game. That is the number I'm really looking at. Almost 10 targets per game. Sure, they brought in Davante Adams. They had Cooper Kupp in and out last year. But the volume's going to be there. He has continuity in the offense. He's going to get the targets. He's going to run a lot of routes. Running 22 routes a game. That could increase. That could increase where he's running around 25, 26 routes a game. That could increase. Route participation rate, that's going to increase. He was in and out of the lineup. That's going to increase. When he's on the field, he's getting that work. He had 4 wide receiver 1 weeks and then 4 wide receiver 2 weeks. And there's a lot of wide receivers that we're going to talk about and that we have talked about that played a full season that don't hit those numbers weekly wise. 18.8 points per game. The dude's a stud. The dude's a stud. He's going to continue to be the stud for the Rams. He's going to be a cornerstone asset for the Rams and your fantasy team. Being drafted as the 14th best wide receiver off the board is T. Higgins, and he has a lot of upside when he's on the field. Last year, he was in and out of the lineup, but he was rock solid, almost 25% target share, almost an 8 out of 10. Those are numbers you want out of your wide receivers, and his 8 out is usually higher than 10. And with how this team is structured, I look for him to get a good target share still. But we're being drafted in round 2. But we got plenty of upside here. If you're looking at the grid there on ADP, you can get him and Jamar Chase together, Justin Jefferson and T. Higgins, something like that, and be stacked and nuclear at wide receiver with 2 dogs that's getting a lot of targets. There's a lot of upside here. 9.2 targets per game here, and a lot of games with double-digit targets. There's not many wide receivers in the league that have this many games with double-digit targets. That's just rare. And he was in and out of lineup last year. Could have had more than that. Wide receiver 24 off the board is Xavier Worthy here, and he came on strong last season, and we could see him just jump the board this year. Give you a good return on investment here. He's up there in value, round 4 ADP on Underdog, maybe a little bit cheaper in your home league drafts. But when you're looking at the players around him, you got a lot of vets here where you know where the production is going to be at, and you know the odds of them going nuclear is very timid. Very timid. But with Xavier Worthy with that 4.2 speed, paired with Patrick Mahomes, taking a step forward here in the offseason, he took a step forward in the back half of last season, you could definitely see and make the case that this is a wide receiver with some upside here that could be tremendous. The downside here is you are looking at some veteran players here that you know what you're going to get. However, what we saw at the back end, the tail end of last season, was pretty good, pretty promising. The work rate's there. He's getting some good red zone looks as well because of that speed. You're trying to get him on those boundaries. He's a guy to look at here. If you're looking for upside early in your draft, Worthy is it. Jawan Jennings, wide receiver 34 off the board. 33 wide receivers being drafted ahead of him. When you look at the numbers here, 26.3% target share, 8 out of pretty much 10. We're running a fair amount of routes per game at 26.5. Most of his production was in 1 week when you're looking at his points per game. Most of his games, wide receiver 3-ish. But he gives you those spike weeks. But when you're looking at the targets, he's got multiple games here with double-digit targets. The workload's there. The workload could cash for you. When you look at what's around him here, wide receiver 35 is Chris Olave, 36 is Jordan Addison, Chris Godwin. This is the alley where you're getting some good wide receiver talent. The round after him, You got some upside with Matthew Golden. Stefon Diggs is there. Josh Downs, if he's healthy on the field. Jaden Reed. Ricky Pearsall's an upside play. So you're in a lane here, strategizing around him, where you got other wide receivers who are either veterans that could get you some sticky production or some upside plays at wide receiver. And I bet you once we get 8th, 9th, 10th round, things get a little bit riskier. So you want to feel good at wide receiver before you get to Jawan Jennings territory, but you also want to be in that position where you're rounding things out right now at wide receiver. This is where you're rounding things out. And if you're not, and you're looking at your wide receiver too, you're probably going to be in trouble. You better hit. You better hit around here, or you're going to be in big trouble. Make sure you get that wide receiver 2 patched up. This is where you're rounding things out. Wide receiver 4 range, 5 range, depending on how your draft is going and your strategy. But he's going to get targets. He's going to get opportunity. That's for sure. And that's going to rack up the production. It could be spiky like we saw last year with some down moments. After all, a lot of people are pivoting from the 49ers passing game. But there is some opportunity here that could splash on any given Sunday where you can take advantage of in the right matchup. Wide receiver 44 off the board, Stefon Diggs. Stefon Diggs paired with Drake May is rather interesting. I look for him to lead the team in targets. 8 last year per game, maybe 7 to 8 this year. They will spread the ball around a little bit. 20+% target share. ADOT's going to be low. Roughly what you see in the chart for scoring here, maybe a few wide receiver 1 weeks, a few wide receiver 2 weeks, high-end wide receiver 3 weeks where he's hitting double digits. I think he's going to be rather consistent. I think he's going to be an okay guy on your roster. I think he's going to score well. I think he's a good value here. I think Drake May is going to target him a good bit. He's looking good in practice. He's creating separation. He's looking good in drills. The knee's good to go. I think he's going to have a good route participation rate. I don't know if he's going to run 32.6 routes per game. That might look like 26 routes per game. They might slow it down a little bit. But he's going to get opportunity. And at this value, you're getting a veteran here that is also in a new situation, so there's upside to it. I think he's going to be steady, but not in that top-tier category anymore. But he's still going to get it done to a degree. However, the question is, do you want to gamble on some of these young guys? Do you want to gamble on some of these young prospects? Quinshon Judkins is falling like a knife right now. I want to see where his ADP is headed. But some of these young running backs, some of these wide receivers, do you want to gamble on some of these guys right now? Those higher-priced, higher-end assets that are gambles, or do you want to go with one of these veterans that are tailing off a little bit or in so-so situations? We're looking at Trey Harris. We're looking at his contract right now, see what happens with that. Wide receiver 54 off the board. Round 9 draft capital on Underdog. You look at this offense, it might be slower pace. They're going to run it hard. They got Ladd McConkey, who's going to get a 25+% target share. Quentin Johnston's still there. Look for him to get like a 17 to 20% target share. Could be a little better than that with a good average depth of target. I look for him to build steam. Maybe throughout the season. Maybe throughout next year. I think this is a long-term play. This is a wide receiver you might be picking up off the waiver wire somewhere down the line. Strategizing from him, I want my lottery ticket dart throws to be running backs this year. And if a lottery ticket wide receiver hits, then it does. And if there is one that I'm chasing, maybe Luther Burden if he gets back healthy. We'll see in training camp. But those running backs, there's just too many of them. Too many of them to chase. Too many of them to chase in this year's draft. And it's getting pretty sexy in the double-digit rounds with these running backs. I'm going to be stacked, rocked, and loaded with upside running backs in a lot of leagues. And I'm going to be deep at wide receiver on the top end for sure. That sounds like zero RB, but I also want to be top end at RB as well. So maybe a little bit of hero RB mixed in a lot of my leagues. Trey Harris, I expect him to have a run up somewhere down the line. It could be this year, next year. I expect him to get more opportunity. Herbert's going to fuel these wide receivers. Ladd McConkey's going to be a dude. He's going to get too many targets for things to get spread around too much for somebody to hit a lot of upside. Xavier Legette, first-round wide receiver, top-end size adjust athleticism. Round 13 draft capital. We added T-Mac to the roster this year in the draft. I look for T-Mac to kill the targets Once he gets his rookie ramp up completed, I look for him to get easily a 20+% target share, probably 25%-ish range once he's acclimated, once he's in that veteran status. Xavier Legette's going to be like that weapon, that jigsaw piece that's going to be moved around. I like the 12.3 ADOT. The target share needs to get more up to 20%. If he develops and gets better and can stay healthy, because he got banged up throughout the practice season last year, off and on. If he can stay healthy on the field and get consistent and get to a 20% target share with that speed and that ADOT, that's a player that can sneak on you. He's a guy you're probably going to pick up off waivers somewhere down the line to play around with. Probably a DFS candidate throughout the season. I wouldn't be surprised if he wins you $1 million or somebody $1 million, considering the speed, considering the deep play. Also, they can use him around the red zone a lot. T-Mac, boundary, back pylon, Xavier Legette with that speed on the mesh. That is something that's going to be tough to stop in the short to intermediate and into the red zone. Xavier Legette has some promise, but it's more for football, not fantasy. But if the volume increases, you could get some upside week to week volatility. It's going to suck setting lineups with him. You're also in an area where the running backs are awesome. It's just an awesome area to get running backs. Trey Benson, Rashad White, Isaac Rondo, Ray Davis all in the same round. Austin Eckler, Tyler Algier, Jaden Blue all in the same round. Jalen Wright after him. You got a lot of upside running backs. That's where I'm chasing. That is where I'm chasing. I'm going to get 2 of those backs. Maybe 3. Back to back in this area in a lot of leagues. But Jaylen Null, getting drafted around the 15th round. You're looking at this roster for the Texans. They jacked it up at wide receiver this year. Tank Dell's banged up pretty bad. We're going to see how he gets right. But we got Null, we got Higgins. Both are 2 good wide receivers from Iowa State. Christian Kirk's there. It might take some time for him to materialize, but this is a good passing offense. He can create separation off the whim. He's got good size and just athleticism. 4.39 speed at 5'10". He's pretty much going to be in that Tank Dell row. And whenever you're watching Xavier Hutchinson, he flashes. He creates separation off the whim. This is a good player. This is a good player that I would not be surprised if we're rushing to the waiver wire to pick up. Once he's acclimated on the field, watch his routes. If his routes ran starts to increase throughout the weeks, targets start to increase incrementally, you may want to pick him up as a stash. This is a very good player. There's a lot of upside with him. Round 15 draft capital, probably going to go undrafted in a lot of home leagues. This is a wide receiver to pay attention to. Just have him marked in Sharpie. If I miss it, I'm missing because I'm going running backs pretty heavy, but I'm also in the part where I could take a swing for the fence. But I want to be loaded with those upside backup running backs this year. There's just so many of them. Tyler Lockett, I'm not drafting him. There's no way, shape, or form I'm drafting him. And I'm usually not this poignant on a player, this serious, but I don't think the upside's going to be there. Cam Ward's probably going to target Calvin Ridley very heavy. Tyler Lockett's probably going to be volatile. I might use him in DFS when I'm submitting a ton of lineups every weekend. He might be in a few of those. Like, I'm not going to have that many Titan stacks each week, but I'll probably have a few of them. I'll probably will due to the price, trying to mix in higher price players everywhere else. I think the target share is probably going to be roughly similar to what we saw in Seattle. It could be up to 15 to 17%. ADOT's going to be in double digits. That's going to allow him to be volatile. But we got rookie wide receivers on this roster clawing their way up the depth chart here. That's getting rather scary. I don't look at him as a long-term option. And if I'm burning a last pick, it's either an upside tight end, a younger wide receiver with upside, definitely an upside running back all day long. We're looking at Isaac Tesla. Not getting really drafted on Underdog. Drafted as the 94th wide receiver off the board here. 230th overall. I would not be surprised if he's one of these players that wins you a lot of money in DFS. He's a guy you got to watch the routes on. You got to watch the targets, the workload, the snaps throughout the season. You might be picking him up. If there's an injury, Tim Patrick, Jameson Williams, he could be sneaking some opportunity. He's going to be deep ball city. He's going to get a good ADOT when he's out there. If he brings in one huge catch downfield, that could make your day in fantasy. That's the thing about it. You're not rostering him right now in basic leagues. If deeper formats, you better think about him if you're in a deeper league, because we got good passing pace in this offense. We'll push it downfield. Wide receivers could get banged up. He could earn more opportunity. Draft capital is fine. Usually you want guys drafted a little bit higher on this because the odds are better. But where he's at and his talent, his hands are pretty sticky. He's caught some nasty balls in his collegiate career. That's the thing about this. This could be a sneaky play. This was a smart pick at wide receiver for the Lions. They didn't really need it, but this is a guy that if something happens to Williams, he could step up. And thinking about that for fantasy, when it's a race to the finish for a redraft, all you need is him to bring in a couple dart throws downfield. He's going to make your week because you got the size, you got the speed. You're a home run hitter. He's a home run hitter. Put him in your lineup and close your eyes. And you hope for the best. That's the type of player you're getting here during his rookie season if you see in the field. Now you're looking at Germaine Burton. I look for the targets, and I look for about 60% of them, if not more to 70% of them, to go to T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. And I'm not joking. I look for Jamar Chase to get close to 30%. T. Higgins 25-ish, if not more percent. And then the scraps to everybody else. Then we're going to get targets to Chase Brown. There's not going to be much for Germaine Burton unless the injury bug hits. He also has to get right. He has to start looking good. He had some off-the-field issues last year, especially some issue with the apartment. And you see this here with the ADP because a lot of people like to chase Bengals. He's 104 off the board at wide receiver, 252 overall. The market's saying no. Market's saying no. Watch him in training camp. Watch his snaps. Watch his routes for waiver wire access. Or just watch my videos because I'll keep talking about the guys who are gaining steam and workload, and maybe you want to pick one of those guys up. Allen Lazard. Justin Fields is there. He's going to hyper-target Garrett Wilson. Lazard will probably have his moments where he gives you some spike weeks. You're going to look at that and pick him up. Then he's going to suck. Then you're going to drop him. Somebody else is going to pick him up after a spike week. The targets will probably look fine for a short period of the season. Looks like a guy that's sneaky to pick up off waivers. Then when you actually use him, he doesn't hit. Then you're wondering if this is going to be the week. Then you drop him. That's probably what you're going to get out of Allen Lazard. I think Garrett Wilson's the player to have in this offense. I don't think Justin Fields is going to fuel two wide receivers for a consistent fantasy production. And then on top of that, the run game is going to be very heavy. Like you just tell, the RPO action is going to be there. They're going to run it with Fields. But nobody's drafting him. The market's staying away. So that all makes sense. Let me know what you think, though. Comments below. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on the way out. One day for watching. Catch you on the next video.